When a man finally steps back, stops chasing, and allows silence to speak for him, something powerful happens inside her, something she never expected. At first, she may act like she doesn't notice. She may pretend she's unfazed, as if your absence is just a minor shift in her day. But the truth is, the moment you withdraw your attention, a storm begins inside her mind. Your consistency, your effort, your presence, these were things she quietly got used to. And even if she never admitted it, your messages gave her reassurance, your energy made her feel wanted, and your presence made her feel secure. So when it suddenly stops, the silence hits her harder than you think. She starts wondering why. Why did you stop? Why did you pull back? Why did the man who used to show up suddenly disappear into quiet confidence? And that's the moment when curiosity turns into awareness. She begins to replay everything, every message you sent, every moment you showed up for her, and every time she took it for granted, that silence becomes a mirror, forcing her to see what she never acknowledged your presence mattered more than she let on. Your absence becomes louder than your words, and she starts realizing that the connection she once thought she had complete control over is slipping away from her hands. In the early days of your silence, she may try to convince herself that she's fine. She tells herself she doesn't need you. She tells herself she's better without the attention. But the human heart doesn't follow ego's logic, because every time she unlocks her phone and doesn't see your name, a little piece of her questions the story she's telling herself. She wonders if she pushed too hard, if she was too cold, if she misread the situation. Your silence makes her face emotions she tried to bury: jealousy, regret, curiosity, and fear of losing someone who genuinely cared. That fear doesn't show up all at once, it creeps in slowly. First, in the tiny thought of, did he lose interest? Then it turns into, is he talking to someone else? And finally, the one question she hates to ask herself, did misjudge his value? Suddenly, the man she believed would always be there isn't there anymore. And now she has to sit with the realization that attention is not guaranteed, that effort is not infinite, and that good men do not wait around forever. Your silence also forces her to confront her own behavior. It makes her see the moments she responded with half interest, the times she didn't appreciate your presence, the days she assumed you'd keep trying no matter what. Now she starts thinking about how she looked from your perspective: emotionally unavailable, uncertain, dismissive. For the first time, she truly sees the imbalance, and that realization stings because deep down, she knows men don't pull away without a reason. Men don't go silent unless something inside them finally understands their worth. And that is exactly what she feels most: the shift in your energy. The version of you that chased her was predictable. The version of you that went silent becomes mysterious, unpredictable, and more attractive than ever. That silence signals strength, self respect, and emotional discipline. It tells her you're not begging for love, you are choosing where to invest your energy, and nothing pulls a woman's attention harder than a man who is no longer emotionally dependent on her reactions. As the days pass, the silence begins to reshape her perception of you entirely. You're no longer the man trying to earn a space in her life. You're the man she now wonders if she's losing. She becomes more aware of your value, more conscious of your presence, and more sensitive to your absence. And in that quiet shift, something awakens inside her: an appreciation she never showed, a desire she once buried, and a fear of losing the man who finally chose himself. Because when you stop chasing and go silent, she doesn't just notice it, she feels it. And that feeling stays with her long after the noise fades. When a man goes silent, he does more than remove his words. He removes the emotional fuel she once relied on without realizing it. Silence isn't just the absence of sound, it's the presence of consequence. It's the moment when everything she brushed aside suddenly becomes impossible to ignore. At first, she may laugh it off and tell herself you're just busy or probably doing your own thing. But even in that early dismissiveness, a quiet tension begins forming inside her chest, because deep down she knows that your attention used to be consistent. She knows that you were always the one keeping the connection alive. So when you stop, the energy shifts from familiar to unsettling. Her mind begins to wander into spaces she never allowed before. She replays the last conversation, trying to remember if she said something wrong. She replays her own attitude, wondering if she took your interest too lightly. She starts noticing small details that never mattered to her before: how quickly you used to respond, how invested your messages once felt, how much emotion you used to bring into every interaction. And the stark contrast of the new silence forces her into reflection. It makes her evaluate not only your role in her life, but also her own patterns, her behavior, her emotional contribution. Suddenly, the silence becomes a teacher, revealing truths she ignored in the noise. This reflection creates an emotional imbalance inside her. For the first time, she begins to feel what you felt: uncertainty, confusion, and emotional distance. She realizes how much of the connection was carried by your effort. And as the silence stretches, she starts confronting the uncomfortable possibility that she may have undervalued something real. Human psychology is simple in one way: we tend to want what pulls away from us. When you were readily available, she never had to evaluate her feelings deeply, but your absence forces her to confront emotions she kept suppressed, especially the ones that hint at attachment. And attachment doesn't disappear just because someone pretends they don't care. The silence becomes a spotlight, exposing the subconscious emotions she didn't want to admit. She begins to feel the subtle ache of missing your energy, not just the messages, but the validation, the excitement, the emotional warmth you used to bring. She may even try to distract herself, scrolling through social media, keeping busy, telling friends she's unbothered. But at night or in moments of quiet, your absence creeps back into her thoughts with a weight she can't shake. That's when she starts wondering if she misread everything, if maybe you weren't as attached as she imagined, if maybe the man she thought would always be available has replaced her with something or someone more meaningful. Your silence forces her to question her assumptions. It dismantles the illusion that she held the upper hand. It makes her realize that a man who stops chasing is a man who has found clarity. And clarity in a man is dangerous to a woman who didn't appreciate him. She starts to see that silence isn't weakness, it's power. It's the quiet decision to redirect your energy toward your own worth. It's the moment she realizes she's no longer the center of your attention, and that realization shakes her confidence in ways she didn't expect. Slowly, the silence begins to shift her emotions from confusion to concern. She wonders if she pushed too far. She wonders if she took your presence for granted. She wonders if her coldness made you believe she didn't care. And with each passing day, reflection turns into regret. Regret for not communicating better, not reciprocating sooner, not appreciating you when she had the chance. The woman who once felt certain now feels uncertain. The woman who once felt in control now feels the weight of losing someone who stopped chasing her not out of bitterness, but out of growth. And that's the moment everything you hoped she'd understand finally becomes clear to her. Not through arguments, not through explanations, but through the simple, undeniable truth of silence. When you stop chasing, something remarkable happens inside her, a realization she never expected to face. For the first time, she feels what it's like when your effort, your attention, your consistency are no longer guaranteed. She always assumed you'd be there. She always believed you'd keep trying, keep reaching out, keep repairing everything she didn't bother to nurture. And that belief gave her comfort. It made her feel secure, important, desired. She didn't have to do much because you were always doing enough for both of you. But the moment you go silent, the security she built on your effort begins to crumble. She starts to realize how much she relied on the certainty of your presence. She remembers how she used to ignore messages because she knew you'd send another one. She remembers how she dismissed your feelings because she assumed you'd stay no matter what. She remembers how she played it cool, acted distant, or pretended indifferent because she never imagined you'd actually walk away. That entitlement shatters when your silence settles in, when there's no message waiting for her, when she checks her phone and sees nothing from you, when she scrolls through notifications hoping your name might appear, but it doesn't. This is when she begins to understand the truth. She never wanted to accept attention is not owed. Love is not automatic. Effort is not forever. And a man can care deeply and still choose to walk away when he's no longer valued. This realization forces her to confront her own behavior in a way she never did before. She starts asking herself questions that once felt unnecessary. Why did she take so long to reply? Why did she hesitate to show appreciation? Why did she assume he'd stay no matter how she behaved? Why did she think his attention was her right instead of his choice? These questions echo louder with every hour of silence because the version of you she was used to, the giver, the pursuer, the one who tried, has suddenly vanished, and what's left is a void she can't fill with ego or excuses. She begins to understand that attention from a sincere man is one of the rarest gifts. Not because men don't give attention easily, but because pure, consistent attention rooted in genuine emotion is something she may never find again once she loses it. She starts to replay moments where she brushed you off, moments where she didn't match your energy, moments where she put pride above connection. And the weight of those moments becomes heavier with each passing day. The silence becomes a mirror, showing her exactly what she contributed and what she didn't. She begins to realize that relationships don't die overnight. They fade slowly when one person keeps giving while the other keeps ignoring. She finally sees that the connection wasn't one sided. It wasn't just you chasing out of desperation. You were investing, you were trying to build something real. And now that you've stepped back, she sees the cost of her own lack of effort more clearly than ever. This realization starts to change her emotionally. Instead of feeling confident and in control, she starts feeling uncertain and insecure. Instead of assuming you'll come back, she starts fearing you won't. Instead of believing she can get your attention anytime, she starts worrying that she's lost access to you entirely. The silence isn't just quiet, it's a reminder that someone who once cared chose themselves over chasing someone who didn't appreciate their worth. Slowly, she begins to feel the emotional discomfort of not being pursued. She feels the sting of not being prioritized. She feels the shock of being treated exactly how she treated you. And in that discomfort, she learns one of the most powerful truths of all: a man's attention is a privilege, not a guarantee. And once it's gone, it changes everything inside her. When you go silent, something begins inside her that she never expected, a battle she cannot escape. It's a collision between her ego and her heart, and both sides are fighting for control. Her ego wants to protect her image, her pride, her sense of superiority. It whispers to her, "You don't need him. He'll come back. He always does." It tries to convince her that nothing has changed, that she still holds the upper hand, that your silence is temporary. But her heart feels something different, something she can't easily deny. Even if she tries to bury it beneath layers of attitude and false confidence, her ego tells her she's fine, but her heart feels the shift. Her ego tries to keep her calm, but her heart senses the absence more deeply than she wants to admit. Her ego wants to maintain the illusion of indifference, but her heart keeps revisiting the warmth, the care, the consistency you once brought. And the contrast between those memories and the harsh coldness of your silence starts tearing her internal world apart. She isn't used to uncertainty. She isn't used to feeling out of control. She isn't used to being the one who wonders. But now she is the one replaying conversations. She is the one checking her phone. She is the one wondering why you haven't reached out. That internal conflict grows louder the longer your silence lasts. Her ego pushes her to act like nothing bothers her. She scrolls through social media with forced confidence. She posts pictures pretending she's glowing, unbothered, living her best life. But her heart betrays her when she catches herself checking if you've viewed the story, if you've liked a post, if you've reacted to anything. Her ego says she doesn't care, but her heart keeps caring anyway. And it's this clash that reveals the truth she never wanted to face. She wasn't as detached as she pretended to be. Your effort meant more to her than she ever acknowledged. Your consistency had an effect she quietly relied on. Your presence became an emotional anchor she didn't want to admit existed. And now that the anchor is gone, she feels herself drifting in emotional waters she thought she was too strong to drown in. Her ego tries to maintain pride, telling her to wait, to stay distant, to keep control. But her heart keeps asking, what if he's really done? What if he's moving on? What if someone else is getting the attention I wasted? And the more she tries to silence that fear, the stronger it grows. She tries to rationalize the situation, telling herself you're playing games, telling herself you're trying to manipulate her. But deep down, she knows the silence isn't a tactic, it's a shift she never prepared for. Your silence forces her to confront an uncomfortable truth. She never thought you'd be the one to pull away first. She never imagined the day you'd stop chasing, stop checking in, stop giving her the emotional safety net she comfortably walked across. And now that the net is gone, she's the one feeling unsteady. She's the one feeling vulnerable. She's the one unsure of her next move. The longer she fights this battle, the clearer it becomes that her ego is losing ground. Her heart starts pushing memories to the surface. Your kindness, your patience, the small things you did without being asked. Memories she ignored when you were present now return with a new intensity. She starts realizing that you were never the weak one. You were the steady one, the loyal one, the man who cared when she didn't. And now you're silent, not out of pettiness, but out of strength. This is what shakes her the most. She expected silence to break you, but it's breaking her instead. She expected you to chase, but now she's chasing answers within herself. Her ego is terrified of losing control, while her heart is terrified of losing you. And in that emotional storm, she begins to understand something she never respected before. Your silence isn't a retreat, it's a revelation, and it changes everything. When you stop chasing her, the silence doesn't just make her notice your absence, it makes her revisit her own actions with a clarity she never allowed before. Suddenly, the moment she pushed you away don't feel so harmless. The time she ignored your messages don't feel so casual. The attitude she used to protect her ego doesn't feel so funny anymore. Your silence becomes a lens, and through that lens, she begins to see her own behavior with an honesty she avoided when you were giving her all the effort, all the initiative, all the reassurance she never returned. She starts questioning the small things at first. Why did she take so long to reply when she knew you cared? Why did she distance herself when you were trying to get closer? Why did she test you, expecting you to pass every time? These reflections weren't possible when your attention was still coming in like clockwork. As long as you were present, she could hide from accountability, but your absence forces her to face herself. Without the safety of your persistence, she's left alone with the truth of her actions, and the truth isn't always comfortable. She begins replaying conversations she once brushed off. She remembers moments when she was cold, distracted, dismissive. Times you try to open up, but she chose pride instead of vulnerability. Times you communicated your feelings, but she responded with sarcasm or silence. Now she wonders if you walked away because you finally reached a breaking point. She wonders if she misread your heart, misunderstood your intentions, underestimated your value. She wonders if her behavior made you believe you weren't wanted, even though that wasn't the full story. This self reflection creates a storm inside her because now, with each memory, the consequences become clearer. She sees how your effort began to fade long before you went completely silent. She remembers moments when your messages got shorter, when your tone changed slightly, when your energy didn't feel the same. And she realizes she ignored the signs. She assumed you'd bounce back because you always had. But now she can see that your patience had limits, even if she never respected them. As these realizations sink in, something changes in the way she views the past. What she once labeled as clingy now looks like devotion. What she once called too much effort now looks like emotional maturity. What she once dismissed as you being dramatic now looks like a man trying to fight for something she didn't bother to protect. She begins to understand that your silence isn't punishment, it's a result of accumulated disappointment she never addressed. And that understanding hits harder than anything she expected. Because now she sees that she wasn't the only one with emotions you were hurting to, you were trying to, you were giving to, but she was so busy guarding her own heart that she never noticed yours breaking in slow motion. Now, when she looks back, she can't unsee her part in the distance that grew between you. She can't deny the moment she could have tried but chose not to. She can't escape the realization that she contributed to the silence she's now afraid of. This self awareness brings regret, the kind that grows quietly at first but sharpens with every memory, the kind that asks questions she's scared to answer. Did she make you feel unappreciated? Did she push you away without meaning to? Did she act too late? Did she misunderstand your sincerity? And worst of all, did she lose a man who genuinely cared? Your silence, instead of making her feel powerful, makes her feel responsible. It forces her to recognize that you weren't asking for too much. You were asking for effort, respect, honesty, emotional reciprocity, things she didn't give until it was too late to matter. And in that moment of truth, she finally understands that some distances aren't created by silence, they're created by the choices made before the silence began. When your silence becomes consistent, steady, and unbothered, she feels a shift that catches her completely off guard, a shift she never expected to see from you. Because for so long, she was used to being the one you prioritized, the one you checked on, the one you made exceptions for. She was used to being the emotional center of your world, even if she never admitted it out loud. And as long as you were chasing, she felt secure, she felt validated, she felt powerful. But when you stop chasing and step back without anger, without drama, without pleading, that's when the real shock hits her. That's when she realizes that something inside you has transformed. Your silence doesn't come from weakness or emotional collapse, it comes from strength. A strength she never gave you credit for, a strength she didn't expect you to possess. And this new version of you, the one who prioritizes his peace over her unpredictability, becomes unfamiliar to her. She doesn't know how to navigate a man who isn't seeking her approval. She doesn't know how to manage someone who no longer reacts to her mood swings, her delays, her games. She doesn't know what to do. When you stop allowing her to control the emotional tempo, she begins to feel the shift in power, not the manipulative kind, but the kind that comes from self respect. Your silence declares without a word that you're done accepting less than you deserve. And when a man reaches this level of clarity, a woman feels it instantly. She feels the absence of your emotional dependency. She feels the withdrawal of your attention. She feels the weight of your indifference. And all of it reshapes the way she sees you. This shift unsettles her because it challenges everything she believed about you. She thought you'd always be available. She thought you'd keep proving yourself. She thought you'd never stop trying. But now she sees that you're no longer functioning from a place of desperation. You're functioning from a place of value, and value changes the dynamic. Suddenly, you're not the man waiting for her to choose you. You're the man she may have already lost because she failed to appreciate you when she had the chance. Your silence makes her reevaluate you, your confidence, your maturity, your emotional discipline. She sees that you didn't disappear to punish her, you stepped back to protect yourself, and that realization makes her see you in a more powerful light. She begins to respect you in a way she never did before. Not because you demanded it, but because you showed it to yourself. She starts comparing you to other men in her life, past, present, potential, and she realizes how rare your loyalty was, how rare your effort was, how rare your sincerity was. She realizes that most men don't care the way you cared. Most don't try the way you tried. Most don't love with that level of purity, consistency, and emotional depth. And for the first time, she sees your silence as something beautiful and terrifying. Beautiful because it shows your growth, terrifying because it shows your freedom. She understands now that you're not tied to her. You're not waiting for her. You're not clinging anymore. You've shifted from seeking her attention to seeking your own alignment. And that evolution forces her to confront a fear she never expected to feel, the fear of being erased from the life of a man who once made her feel chosen. She starts to wonder what changed inside you. What made you stop chasing? What made you finally choose yourself? She wonders if someone else admires you the way she never did. She wonders if your silence means you've emotionally outgrown her. And the more she thinks about it, the more she realizes that your silence isn't the end of something. It's the beginning of a stronger, wiser version of you. And that is what shakes her to her core. Because when a man transforms, the woman who underestimated him becomes the first to feel the consequences.